Rockheads, pour some Vermont maple sugar in your coffee and listen up. It's time for another stellar episode of .NET Rocks, the internet audio talk show for .NET developers with Carl Franklin and Rory Blythe. This is Jeff Maciolik, here to announce show number 90 with guest Julie Lerman, recorded live Friday, November 19th, 2004. .NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net, training developers to work smarter, and now offering hands-on VBNet, ASP.NET, and C# classes. Online at www.franklins.net. Support is also provided by Code Magazine, Microsoft Technologies in-depth for IT managers and developers. Online at www.code-magazine.com. And now, the man who can't wait to hear Julie's big secret, Carl Franklin.
Hey. It's Carl. How you doing? Welcome to another stellar episode of .NET Rocks. I'm Carl Franklin in New London, Connecticut. And as always, my partner in crime, well, not as always, but not in the last couple of weeks, but it's good to have you back, Rory. How you doing?
I'm doing well. This is my first time on the new old show format.
Yeah.
And I'm a little confused. So what do we do? Do we talk for 12 seconds, then we just turn it right over to the interview, or what do we do? And then do I have to shut up the whole time, or can I talk?
Oh no, absolutely. You can talk. Of course, I want you to talk. And we're still going to have fun. So don't worry. We're not going to be totally dry and stale. We're still going to have some fun. We're just not going to do the extra bits. That's all. But of course, we're going to be ourselves, and we can't be ourselves without having fun, right?
I'm down with that, though, because I became a DNR fan based on the old DNR format.
Yeah.
So for me to go back to this, it's almost kind of like what would have happened if it might be kind of how you might feel if you joined the Rolling Stones now and they somehow managed to bring back Brian Jones, even though Mick had him killed in that swimming pool accident like such a long time ago. But that's kind of what it would feel like, you know. So for me, getting to go back is kind of cool, even though I was never a part of the old show. Getting to, kind of do the old show is pretty neat. Or like if you were on a new version of Star Trek and you'd go back and film it on like the old Star Trek bridge would be really cool. And yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about, but
no, it's that's exactly right.
Traditional,
man. Yeah, that's exactly what it's all about. But I certainly do want to hear about what's been going on with the last couple of weeks. What have you been doing?
Oh man, okay. Well, wow. I've been on the road for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks now. Living out of a suitcase, I'm so used to it that my suitcase is actually still full of my clothes, and I'm still pulling clothes in and out of it in the morning. I have not unpacked, but I've kind of been everywhere. I went to Colorado, I went to Vegas, I went to Washington, went to Oregon, went back to Washington, went back to Oregon, and then I may even gone back to Washington again, but I don't really remember. And now I'm back in Oregon, and I'm about to go back to Washington. And then after that, I'm going to go back to Vegas. And I mean, I've just been like busy, but having a great time. I've been doing a lot of MSDN events. Had a great crowd out in Denver, Colorado. You know when you've connected with a crowd where you leave the theater for just a minute and you come back and somebody has hidden all of the prizes that you're going to give away at the end of the talk, So I'm in this room with like 100 people, wow. And they're all grinning at me, And it's because they had taken all the swag and like deposited it in this in all these nooks and crannies, and then the whole audience played hot and cold with me.
Oh man,
when I was trying to find it, it was embarrassing and hilarious at the same time. But no, that was a great crowd. I've been having a good time.
What kind of stuff are you showing off in those MSDN events?
We're just doing like just good old fashioned tech talk, right? Like this quarter, we're talking about OOP and VBNet for all the VB6ers who haven't totally made the transition.
Yeah, that's sort of my the thing that I've been doing too. You're like a C# guy, but you've had to sort of do the VBNet thing. How's that going?
Yeah, and actually, we are in direct competition with you. That was our goal at the beginning, was to put Carl Franklin down. No, our talk is a little different than yours.
Yeah.
I actually your talk is a little more like from the cuff, or a little off the cuff. I mean, it's a little more. There's just more Carl in it. This one, it's a little more straightforward and technical, but it's still good, and each presenter puts their own spin on it.
That's cool.
Then we're doing map point web services and ASP.NET 1.1 optimization and performance tuning, and then finishing up with ASP.NET 2.0 membership and personalization. So it's fun. The ASP.NET 2.0 stuff is always fun. You can just make I don't know if you've done any Whidbey demos yet, but you can just make stuff up, and people love it. It doesn't matter what it is. You can just make things up on the spot, and people are just like, wow, that's awesome. Until you realize you don't know how to do something that you're trying to do.
I was going to say, you can answer any question, yes or no. Just take your pick. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, because nobody knows yet. It's still
Nobody
beta
knows.
1, nothing set in stone. Sure.
I remember that
Yeah.
experience with beta 1.
Totally.
I totally remember that experience with beta 1 of 1.0, and where there were things that nobody knew, and of course,
Yeah.
I was glad to be in classes where people were as curious as I was, and so they let me sort of hack. I don't know. Let's find out. Do you guys mind? Let's
Yeah, no, I'm doing that too, and I love that when an audience member says, "Well, can you do this?" And you go, "Well, I actually have no idea, so let's give it a shot." And you fail in front of everybody, but there's something nice because it's all kind of happened together.
Yeah.
And I love that. Those days are fabulous, fabulous days. When you've got an audience that is willing to let you fail on a 20-foot diagonal screen,
it's great,
and still be nice to you afterwards, you've had a good day.
I think they like that. I mean, I don't want to get into a big conversation about it, but I think they like seeing somebody, work through problems and struggle and figure things out. There's value to that. As long as you don't try to pretend like you knew it all along, that never works. And
right.
And you can never.
No, what I do in those cases, I just say, "Hey, man, I work for Microsoft. I know everything." Right. So.
Well, let me tell you what I've been doing this week.
I was about to ask. I was about to ask.
Oh.
I'm not a totally rude co-host. I was about to ask you how your day was going.
Well,
so
go ahead.
Let me just do that. Carl, how has your time been going? What have you been doing?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. Let me tell you. I've been teaching this week. I actually taught 4 guys from CarMax, CarMax.com. It's a company that I did some training for down in Virginia earlier in the year, and there was 4 more guys that they came up. And they were really, really good students. I mean, they really understood everything. They could keep up with the typing, which is always a prerequisite in my class because I go a mile a minute. And they enjoyed it, and a lot of times they just got stuff. Like they didn't ask questions, and the kind of questions that I normally get. So we buzzed through a lot of material, and that was good. But last night, we sometimes have band rehearsals on Tuesday nights, and this Tuesday night we didn't have it, and we had it on Thursday night instead. But my drummer, Steve Kermitas, is actually a manager in a Microsoft shop and manages a team of developers up in Connecticut, Bloomfield area, and he wrote, or I don't know if he wrote, but a friend of his maybe wrote some words to the tune "Taxman" by the Beatles for one of their guys who is responsible for putting out patches, patches for software.
So the Patch Man.
So it's the Patch Man. And if you're looking for the URL for the lyrics, I'm going to play it now because we recorded it. It's www.shrinkster.com/29y. And here's Patch Man. This is my brother and I singing, by the way.
Let me tell you how it will be. One patch for you, 10 bills for me. Let's work the Patch Man. Yeah, work the Patch Man. You say you want it right away. Well, I should have sent
Patch Man. And
Got a little bit of free time out there in Connecticut, do you, Carl? It's something. It's always interesting to me when someone has like a lot of talent, and sometimes they just use it for total kicks, you know?
Well, you know,
we put together something like that.
we like to do it when we can.
Yeah.
Can't always do it. But
So I like this new format. Instead of breaking it up into little segments, we're just hitting it, all at the front of the show instead. So we're
true.
just going to have like 45 minutes of bam, and then we'll
not
get to you, Julie.
Not 45. In fact, we're done.
Oh,
It's
well,
time.
never
It's time
mind.
to talk to Julie. And by the way, if you wanted the lyrics for that, that's www.shrinkster.com/29y to get the lyrics to Patch Man, because it's kind of fun, and it's kind of hard to hear the words. Of course, hard to hear the words in any song that was recorded before 1980. Anyway, Julie Lerman is the owner of Julie Lerman Incorporated, DBA The Data Farm, and has been developing software applications and consulting to businesses since 1984. She's the founder and leader of the Vermont.net Users Group, as well as co-chair of the INETA User Group Relations Committee, a Microsoft .net MVP, and an ASP Insider. She speaks at conferences like DevTeach, DevDays, SysCon's Edge East, and ASP.NET Connections. And check out Julie's weblog at www.thedatafarm.com/blog. Will you please welcome my good friend Julie Lerman? How are you, Julie?
Hey, Carl. Great. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Julie, do you know Rory?
No, Rory.
That's kind of odd considering the fact that the last time you saw me, Julie, you came running into my arms.
That's
Yes,
funny.
of course I know Rory.
Oh, all right. Well, he's here too.
Sorry, guys. If there was any noise just now, I was opening a window because my neighbors turned on the heat, and now it's really hot in the room, and I can't focus when it's really hot, and my air conditioner seems to be broken, and all this stuff happened. But I'm sorry, so go on.
At least you got rid of that.
How are you?
At least you got rid of that damn dog.
Man, I miss that dog. Don't talk to me about that dog. Hi, Julie. How's it going?
Gosh, I thought you were talking about my dogs. No, they're sleeping.
Yeah,
Until the
no.
doorbell rings, then we're in big trouble.
And
Which reminds me. Hey, Julie. How's it going?
and
All right.
and how is Vermont tonight?
Yeah, it's pretty quiet. It's been dark for a couple hours, 3
Yeah.
hours now. So, you want to kind of go to sleep at 5 o'clock these days.
Yeah. What you been up to lately?
Well, as you guys know, I was just out in Las Vegas, which was a whole lot of fun.
Yes,
that
it
was my
was.
first real big conference I got to speak at.
Oh, really?
And, so it was a lot of fun to be out there. I'd never seen Vegas before. Went out to the desert with Kathleen Dollard a couple of days before that started, which was why we missed your big party.
Yeah, I know. It's okay. We
What were you guys doing out in the desert? Was this like a big Jim Morrison peyote thing, or were you just hanging out, or what?
I'm just telling. No, actually, we went to Zion. We had this great plan. We were going to camp out, do all this stuff, and finally we were like, no, forget it. We're going to stay in a nice motel or hotel and have internet access and work on our sessions and do all that stuff. So we, went hiking and drove around in the mountains during the day and in the canyons, and then worked at night, and then drove into Las Vegas.
There's a lot of great
Beautiful
hiking out there.
I've never seen anything
Yeah.
like it before.
There's a lot of great places to hike out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't hike much. You can probably tell by my pear-shaped ass. That I don't hike that much. But I do. I remember Don Kiley was talking about it, and a whole bunch of other. Jeff, when we were out there, was like, "Man, I want to come out here and hike."
Yeah. Yeah, we got to plan maybe next year, definitely do some camping and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, we can walk. You don't have to hike.
So what were you yakking about at the conference?
I had 3 different presentations, and I tend to be all over the map. So I did one on WYSI, which is kind of my new favorite topic, and I did I think the 4th iteration of my What's New in the Base Class Libraries in Whidbey talk. Kind of focused that for ASP.NET developers because my tagline for that is there's more to .NET than system.web.star. And my 3rd talk was a tablet PC talk.
Cool.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, that one, actually it was kind of funny when I originally scheduled to do that. It was the only tablet talk in the whole show, and then the tablet team decided to come, and they did a whole pre-con day, and then in addition to that, they did, I think, 5 sessions during the regular conference also. So my session shifted a number of times over the last couple of days before I did it, because it was like, oh, we just did your talk, so you got to do something else. Oh, well, we just did that talk, so you got to do something else. But it was actually fun because the Doodle app that I did, Carl, you actually wrote a doodle on it. So I just broke that apart and explained how I did that one.
Cool. How do you think the tablet is being utilized, or how well is it being accepted, or what am I trying to say? You know what I mean.
Received.
Is it catching on?
It's definitely, one of those questionable things these days, because it's not catching on as quickly as people had expected it to. So, there's a lot of people who are really naysaying it. And I don't think the tablet's an all or nothing kind of an option right now. I think it's just going to eventually find its way into all of our lives, and that's just what a laptop will be.
Yeah, I just want to say that that the tablet isn't necessarily meeting some people's expectations, and therefore is taking a bit of flack. Doesn't really indicate, and I know you didn't say this, but I just want to make it clear for everybody. Doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the platform or that it isn't doing well. It's just simply that it's not meeting some expectations, and in my opinion, that's probably just a problem with the expectations. I mean, any new technology, and of course, the idea of a pen-based computer is not all that new, but of the tablet PC platform, it always takes a while, for these things to get adopted, and that's just reality.
I was going to say. Exactly.
Right now, I think a lot of people say, well, what am I going to do with it? And if it doesn't answer an immediate problem, people don't see that. But I think what's happened is not all, but a lot of people, once you put a tablet in their hands and they play with it, they're like, well, this is fun.
Yeah.
Precisely. That's exactly right.
Yep.
And
it's kind of
thinking
like,
out of the box, I think, also is a big deal. I mean, this is the first time in 20 years I've gotten to write applications that weren't data entry applications.
Yeah.
It was just fun to have something new to do, new to play with.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more. I mean, there's certainly a lot of seriously vertical markets that, it's just such an easy answer for. The healthcare market. Construction, when you can take documents and redline them out in the field. And I just like to think of it as any place where you would be carrying around a clipboard. Because carrying around a clipboard, filling out a form, bringing the form back to the office, somebody sits down in front of a computer and enters that data into a computer program. Right there is another, quick replacement with a tablet PC in a lot of cases.
You're right, though, about sticking them in front of people, because people don't really realize what you can do with them until they're actually holding one and they start using one, and you kind of see that excitement show up in their eyeballs when they go, oh crap, how much is this thing? Because I need to get one, like right now. And I think it's the same deal with web services, not just like web services in terms of, we've got like something that's kind of like XML remoting, but web services in terms of like Amazon, right? Where suddenly you have something that you might not have known you wanted, or that you might not have thought was possible, but when you start using it and you realize how powerful it is and how much it changes the way you can do things, that's when it gets exciting. I kind of see the tablet working there, and I think you're right in that you have to put it in front of somebody's, eyes before they're really going to get that. Otherwise, you're just going to hear a bunch of catchphrases.
It also takes time, right? It takes time for somebody with vision to implement a solution that is going to utilize that. I mean, it's not like it's not like a laptop or anything else that they all work the same. And you can just sort of replace your old slow machines with new faster machines, and everything still works. You have to write software for it. You have to architecturally design your systems for the tablet.
Right,
so,
and that's the thinking out of the box part.
Right.
I mean, a lot of us developers, and I feel like I'm starting finally after all these years to shift a little bit, but I've always been a programmer who looks for solutions, who has a problem and looks for solutions, and I've always been in awe of people who look at technology and think of what you can do with it, instead of just looking, saying, oh, I have a problem, how am I going to solve it?
Right.
Because when, a lot of times solving the problem, you're just going to go as far as what exists out there. You're not going to go farther. What I did with a tablet when I first got it was I wanted to force myself to think beyond what I knew about programming, which is data entry. And I started looking at a lot of other types of programs people were writing, like the the math. Sorry, I can't think of what it's called. There's a math program where you can actually write in ink formulas, and it translates them. Not formulas like 1 + 1, but formulas that you can't type on a keyboard. So, a lot of people look at the tablet and they just think of it as, okay, well, I can type faster than I can write.
Right.
Right. So I started thinking about, well, what can't you do with a keyboard?
Yeah.
So that's some of the thinking out of the box, but there's a lot of much smarter people who are going to go way beyond my logic, that's for sure.
I wouldn't fault yourself too much for that. I mean, you're a consultant. Your job isn't really to be, like a visionary. Your job is actually to use existing tools and things that your customers are going to feel safe with. Like you're still maintaining Fox Pro code, unless I'm incorrect, aren't you? I mean, you've got everything from .NET to like access to Fox Pro stuff. I would imagine that you're still working with.
Do I have to admit that?
You don't have to admit it. We can mark it down as rumor right now, and we don't have to.
Yeah, this isn't a big secret though. This should have been. I do have a couple of Fox Pro 2.6 applications out there that I still maintain for some clients, and we every year we go, oh, how much longer can we hold out with this before we spend another $30,000 or so to rewrite it? Yeah, and I have a couple of Access programs. I've at least gotten those people to move up to Access 2003, so that when I have to touch their programs, we don't have all those compatibility problems.
Yeah.
But those are old programs, but they work. They do solve their problems. Yeah, and I've used a lot of different software, but I've been with Visual Basic for a long time now.
Yeah. That's the reality, though, for a consultant, right? So, I mean, that's what happens. You will have old code like that.
Julie, can I tell you one thing that I've been impressed with about you?
Really?
If you don't mind.
Okay.
You to me are sort of like the quintessential networker. You're like the person that I would like to know in this business, because you may not have technically, you may not work technically on all these different issues and have the answer from experience, but everybody who has the experience and what they have experience in, and you're like the first person to hook them up. It's an amazing thing, Roy. If you ever had dinner with Julie and she's talking with somebody and somebody brings up an issue, like could be anything, it doesn't even have to be technology. She'll say, oh, you know what? I should introduce you to my friend blah, blah, blah in New York City who runs this company that yada, yada, yada. You know what I mean? It's just like automatic with her. And it's really true in .NET too. So, it's very
funny
impressive.
Because I think sometimes my short-term memory isn't very good. My husband always says I have Lyme's disease or something like that. But I don't know. My head is definitely like a Rolodex for stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's really fun. Before even with being part of the community, just even parties, regular, just socially, it was so much fun to bring people together from all my little different worlds and find the things about them that definitely connected them when they wouldn't have ever thought of it.
Right.
So I appreciate you noticing that. I think it's one of the things that's gotten me to stand out a little bit.
Yeah, well, I agree. Yeah.
And it brings me great pleasure to do it, too. It's a lot of fun. Because, I think a lot of people think of networking as something you do for yourself.
Right.
Networking to find a job, networking, basically, really, that's what people network
Yeah, and I definitely don't get that idea.
For me.
I was going to say, I definitely don't get the idea about you. You do it as a favor to people. You two should hook up. It's pretty awesome.
Oh, thanks, Carl.
Yeah, I like that.
So I'm an ASP.NET developer, and I want to know what's new in the BCL.
Well, you should have attended my session, Roy.
but I was drunk in Vegas, Julie. So why don't you just tell me? Come on, give me
You
something.
You want me to tell you some of the things that I think are pretty cool? Not the things that everybody talks about, like generics and things.
Right.
Those items, because they get a lot of play.
Sure, let's hear the gems.
One of the things I think is really cool is the debugger visualizer, which is inside of the diagnostics namespace. And that's something I I demo in that talk, and I show people in that talk, and I'm going to write an article about it for Code Magazine. I promise. I keep saying I'm going to do that. So that's something that's actually cool. And they've just, one of the things that they've done in the base classes is not replace things, but improve a lot of things, maybe give you an alternate way of doing some things that are already in there.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the points of the reason I like talking about that and presenting on those things is you could just go into .NET 2.0 and just do things exactly the same. You know, your code's not going to break. Things are still going to work. So you're not going to know that there are these just little things here and there, like even something like web client. You can FTP now with a web client class, which you couldn't do before. And that was something, that was one of those things I definitely remember because I spent a lot of time trying to FTP with a web client class in an application because there was nothing anywhere that said you couldn't do that.
Yeah.
It talks about uploading files and downloading files. Finally, somebody told me you can't do that. So they added that in there. It's like they did that just for me.
Yeah. That's cool. A lot of great
when
stuff.
I do that presentation, or if you looked at that deck, most of what that is, it's like the list. When you first get your hands on a new version of something, what's your big question? What's new? Where's the list? I want to see the list of what's new, and there wasn't a list anywhere. So that's one of the things I'm kind of doing in there. But since I'm in front of people, I can also demo some of the things and show a little code.
Well, we'll throw us a few more bones. I mean, you're not going to ruin your talk here because nobody listens to the show. So just a couple more items.
Boy, I want. Can I cheat and open up my presentation?
Yeah. Do you want me to hum while you do that, or sing, or anything?
Yeah, sure. We could actually play the Burning Man song.
I've been away from it for 4 days or something like that, so might have forgotten it all.
That's all right. We'll play a little song while you're doing that. This is Julie looking in her session right now.
Because I told you I have a really bad short-term memory.
All right, it's enough of that.
Well, another one of the things that actually intrigued me a lot, and it was more for Windows development stuff, and also some of the new, maybe some middle tier, is that you can actually control client-side caching on a request by request basis. Mm-hmm. So when I first saw that, I thought of being able to do that with web pages, which doesn't really make sense because your web server can't really control what's going on in your computer's cache. But with these are called policy cache, and I'm not saying exactly the right class. It's in system.cache.
That's okay. Everybody's going to forget by the time 2005 is actually out, so you can just get it close enough for now, and that'll be good enough.
But it's in there. It's called a policy cache, and you can actually control how stale, maybe. You can, if something's cached locally. Say you write a Windows application that maybe you're downloading a PDF file from a web server, right? A web application. And you've got maybe a Windows front end or something like that, or even your middle tier is going out and getting that. But the easiest way to understand it is if you think about it being on the client machine. And maybe that PDF is really, really resource intensive to create on the server or to send down the pipe. So you can actually, when you write this little Windows application, this smart client that calls out to the web server to get that PDF file, you can tell it something like, if this particular request, the response from this request is less than 1 day old, then just take it out of the cache. If it's more than a day old, go ahead and get it. You can control it by time, and there's a couple of different ways. There's max age, there's freshness, there's staleness. So, it's kind of like if you can understand bread, maybe it'll help you a little bit. And you can also do it by location. So you can say just, if I've got something in my cache, just always take it from the cache or never take it from the cache. But you can also do it on a request-by-request basis. Other little things, I actually had a whole presentation I did a couple years ago on on streaming, because streaming is really something you unfortunately need to understand, even if you want to do some of the most simplest things like open up a file.
Yeah,
get
streams.
Text out of the file.
Right.
And you had to you could just copy somebody's code and write the way to do it, but if something went wrong, then you're kind of screwed because, you don't know how to problem solve. So I thought it was better to understand how streams work. So if something went wrong, you'd go, oh, wait a minute, I didn't close the stream. And it's not fair for a lot of programmers to just make them have to do all that work just to open up a text file and read it into a string in .NET. So now they have file.readall and file.writeall.
Huh.
So it's just one line of code. It just returns, if it's read all, it just returns the text.
One thing that's really cool about the stream, well, it's really interesting. I don't know if it's cool, but it's certainly an issue, is that there's so many ways to do everything. Like you said, there's so many ways to open a file and read the data. You can do it with just a raw stream, or you can do it with a stream reader and a couple lines of code. Now you can do it with one line of code. And yeah, it's important to know like what you give up when you use something that's higher level, in terms of file access and read only, write only. What are the default options?
Well, that's with some of this stuff that they have simplified, you're losing the options. If you want to do some of the more complex stuff, then you're going to have to get into the deeper classes to do it. So there's not a lot that you can do other than this. For example, with one of the things that you wouldn't be able to do with the file.readall that is new actually in .NET, which is really, really cool, is that you can ACL a new file or a new directory. You can actually, as you create a new file or a new directory, you can set the permissions for it as you create it. Is that the coolest thing?
Yeah.
I mean, all that stuff people had to learn about using ACL.
Mm-hmm.
That's another one of those things. It's like, I just want to have to do this. I just want to do this one little thing. Why do I have to learn all of that plumbing in order to accomplish this one little thing? So being able to do that, set the permissions for a new file or a new directory, is really, really cool. But you're not going to get that if you're just doing file.writeall. You're not going to get that kind of complexity.
Hey, Julie, Brian Noyes is in the chat room, and he says, one of the things that is cool about 2.0 with respect to ASP.NET is that you don't have to use ASP.NET anymore. You can use smart clients and click once. And Sahil says, yes, Brian, we know. Yes,
Brian.
Brian.
I looked through some of the evals from my, at Connections, and one of the comments, only one person said this about that particular talk. He said, I think it was a he. I don't think there was any women in the room that day. He had said, "This is an ASP conference. Why are we talking about this stuff?" But it was the whole that was exactly the point, because I think there's so much cool new stuff in ASP.NET, especially on kind of like the in system.web and on the UI front. There's so much cool stuff there that I think a lot of people are going to focus on that, and you're not going to see all this other really, really useful goo underneath.
Yeah. So, is this a good time to bring up your dirty little secret that you've been telling us about in email all day?
All day. I think I just told you once.
Well, you said you were going to say something on .NET Rocks that, I don't know. We're all...
Well, do you want to ask me a little bit about my background, maybe?
Yeah, your sordid past? Okay.
Places I've worked?
All right.
No, out with it.
Get out with it. Okay. Well, let's see. Okay. So I've had a different kind of background in my career than a lot of programmers. As most people know, I wasn't really a CS major or anything like that.
No, you weren't.
No, I wasn't. Well, this had nothing to do with I did get a really good education. But I did, when I first moved to New York, one of my first jobs in New York, I ended up working at Playboy magazine the first one, it was Penthouse.
Okay.
I worked at Penthouse magazine for 2 years.
Now, what exactly did you do there?
Oh, do I have to tell tell that part too?
Yeah.
No, I started out in the circulation department. I was hoping to get over to Omni magazine, right?
Yeah.
Because they also published Omni.
Right.
And so that was the hook for getting me in there. I started in the circulation department working for this guy. I probably shouldn't say his name. God forbid, things come around and go around.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a guy who had been very, very successful in the newsstand business, and with his knowledge, he ended up being like the head of all circulation for Penthouse, which is a really big deal job.
Yeah.
And here I came in with my fancy college education, so I had to correct all of his letters that went out. We didn't have emails back then. You remember?
Right. Letters. Yeah.
So I worked there, and then I got scooped up into the accounting department. Oh, and so this is really exciting now, right? You're hoping I work somewhere more interesting.
Well, yeah, personally.
But
yeah.
I did actually spend a lot of time hanging out with a friend of mine who was he worked in editorial over at Penthouse.
Mm-hmm.
So we would check out some of the letters that came in. He worked for Xavier Hollander.
Oh, right.
Oh, no. I mean, I don't know anything about any of that, but
He would preview the letters that would come in and pick out which letters would go to Xavier Hollander.
Oh, boy.
And for her to answer. So I actually learned a lot by, at lunchtime. I'd go hang out with Mark, and we would read.
A lot about what, Julie?
And I'd be like, oh, my God. People usually basically use the same phrases over and over again.
Yeah.
Most of those letters.
And you know that there's half that shit's made up, right?
Oh, really? Actually, one day my friend Peter and I thought it would be fun to write a letter ourselves. So we sat down and started working on that. And Peter is a real wacko guy, so the letter just started getting way too out of control. So we decided to bag the whole idea. But we know. I mean, real people write them and send them in.
Oh, sure.
But, there's fantasies that make that stuff up.
Yeah, they're writers.
Right. But I learned a lot of kind of tagline inside guy jokes that women don't normally know. And it's fun because I actually, I'll say something once in a while in passing that will just totally shock my husband. How do you know that? Girls aren't supposed to know that stuff.
Then you worked for Playboy also?
So then I went from there to natural history, so that was naked monkeys and stuff. And then I went from there to Playboy magazine, where I worked for a couple of years. And, I was doing computer stuff there. And it was in the advertising department in New York. And went out to Chicago a bunch of times. But the coolest thing was I got to go to a Playmate of the Year party at Hef's Mansion one year. And so that was pretty interesting. My boss and I were walking around, and I just kept saying to him, please, just tell me these girls can't write computer programs. Because they were beautiful. And I saw the cave with the hot tub in it and the whole thing.
We're supposed to know that? What's that?
Yeah,
What's
I don't know what she's talking about.
Saying, normal name.
Rory, Carl, help me out here. What's the cave with the hot...
cave. The hot tub cave, yeah. The hot
tub. Grotto.
Ah, yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, I've been there so many times.
So, yeah, so that's it.
Wowie.
Do you still respect me?
Well, yeah, actually, more than I thought I was going to, actually. That's pretty tame compared to what I thought you were going to say.
Oh.
But,
Well, my big joke is when I left Playboy, they pushed all the silicone cells. But we're not going there.
You brought something up in the email you sent me earlier in the week that that made me think of something Rory posted on his blog once, and I know that you guys have similar thinking about this. But there was a post that you wrote, Rory, once about the fear, the things that you fear, the technologies that you fear. Like what are those things? And I know that Julie, you've been talking and thinking about this a lot too.
I saw that post and I think I answered it 5 seconds after you posted it, didn't I, Rory?
Right.
So yeah, I don't remember exactly, but you might have answered before I actually posted.
Right. What's up with that? What's up with fear of technology? Why is everybody afraid of multi-threading or whatever, or sockets or?
It sounds scary, And some of it is, because one of the things that's happened, and I think also more for VB programs, people are coming over from VB6 and into .NET.
Yeah.
There's a lot more exposed. See, we're back to the Playboy thing again. Sorry, I can't help it. We see a lot more of the plumbing, and we have access to a lot more of the plumbing than we ever had before. And you don't have to go there. You can just keep writing, regular little applications, but you're not gonna get. I mean, you can write an application without getting into that plumbing, but you can just really go so much farther if you start understanding that stuff. And it's confusing and it's complicated and it's so new that and a lot of the people who know it, when they talk about it, they just breeze right by it, like, oh well, everybody knows this.
Yeah.
And then that makes you feel worse because then you're embarrassed to ask about it. It's like embarrassed to admit that you don't know it. So I'm like very proudly, standing up there going, hey, I don't know this, and I'm a programmer who's been around for 20 years, so I don't see any reason for anybody else to feel bad about that. These guys are plumbers.
Yeah.
However, that doesn't mean it's not knowledge that us normal programmers can acquire. And that's what I've been working on with Wizzy. I decided I want to be able to explain it to people the way I wish somebody had been able to explain it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of my raison d'etre right now. I've been working really hard on that.
I'm with you 100%.
Well, you're like that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what really makes you special in the training arena. You really make a lot of stuff that's people think, oh, well, that might be too hard. It's a big word,
right,
whatever.
Right.
It's just so new, and it's so all about C++ or something like that. And perspective also, I think, is a lot of the problem. For example, delegates, right?
Yeah.
Delegates always scared me. I never really understood them.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, I heard somebody in C# land explaining events to a C# programmer, and they said, "Oh, well, events they're delegates. We just have to write the delegate to get the event." And then I finally went, "Oh, that's it, right?" And then I was able to turn to VB programmers and say, "Oh, this delegates, it's just a way to get events. We get the events for free, right? And these poor C# programmers, they have to write some code in order to get the event." I mean, that, but so that's just perspective. And then people go, "Oh, okay, I understand delegates, no big deal." And so Wizzy is like that for me, and that's what I've been doing a lot with. And also the one of the things with Wizzy that really held me back a lot was not understanding things like digital signing, encryption,
Mm-hmm.
etc. And I would read articles. I would listen. I didn't sit in on it, but I listened to it on the DVDs, like Benjamin Mitchell's talk on Wizzy. And he's great. He's a real plumber, and he really understands his stuff, and he's really great at explaining it. But when it came to those things that are so important to what all of that's happening in WS security, which is all those tools, encryption and digital signing and digital signatures, he did like a 10-second review of it because the plumbers, they all know that stuff. And I just kept getting stuck. He'd moved on, and I'm still going, but wait, I don't understand this stuff. So that's another one of the things that I'm working hard on also, is just saying, all right, I learned this stuff. I worked really hard to learn it so that I could explain it to people like me.
And it's working too, right?
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of really good feedback. Thankful. People are just grateful.
Right. Yeah, at Dev Connections, Dan Appelman did a fundamentals talk called Encryption 101, which wasn't, it wasn't all about digital signing or anything of those things that you're talking about, but it was just like basic encryption, like how does it work?
Right.
What is it all about? And the room was packed. It was probably the largest attended session out of all of them.
And, I've had comments like when I was in the speaker lounge before I did the talk, Juval was there, Juval Lowy. And he's somebody who really knows this stuff inside and out. And he also has a certain perspective about what types of programmers need what types of tools, depending on what they're going to be doing.
Right.
And he looked at my talk and he said, "You don't have to explain that to them. They don't need to know that. Just show them how to click the little check boxes. That's all they need to know." And I looked at him and I said, "That's why I'm doing this talk.
Yeah.
It's empowered me, Now I'm not only comfortable going into WYSI and playing with this stuff, but now it puts more tools in my bag. When I got a problem, now I can solve it myself. And so that makes a much bigger difference. And, I'm not doing the kind of stuff that Michelle LaRue Bustamante is doing. I'm not doing all this interop stuff. But still, it's really important, I think, to understand the tools that you're working with.
Sahil from the chat room asked if you could Julie.brain serialize about transactions in SQL 2005, especially in light of Mars, multiple active result sets, best practices, pitfalls to watch for, etc.
Yeah, actually, I saw we had talked about that for a moment while I was in the chat room. I've actually written, although it's in editing, and I'm going to have to totally rewrite it, an article from SVN magazine on some of the new features of ADO.NET 2.0. In this case, this is different than what I did with WYDB, with the BCL classes. This isn't the list of everything I could find. This is the things that, as a developer, turned me on, the things I thought were really, really cool in there that answered some of my problems. So Mars is something that I didn't dig in too deeply. It was something really interesting for me, but I think maybe I'm not working on, the kind of projects I'm working on aren't really, really huge, so it didn't answer, it didn't solve a problem I've been having. But it is actually really interesting because what they're doing is, and it works in tandem with SQL 2005. Right now, when you get data back from your database, it can basically only send one result set down the pipe. And there's it's just trying to visualize it. It's like visualize it. There's a beginning and an end to the pipe, and it just kind of snips it off. That's the definition, or should I say, it's defined by the beginning and end of the result set. And so on the programming end, on the ADO.NET end, when we're accessing that stuff, we can only have one, am I going to say command or connection? One connection at a time. This is a real switch over from WYSI too. And so you have to just keep making new connections over and over again every time you want to go out and get another piece of data from your database. So with Mars, we can actually reuse the connections over and over again because they've changed the way that stuff's coming down the pipe. And therefore, on the ADO.NET end, they made the change in SQL Server for 2005, so they made ADO.NET smart enough to be able to work with that.
Cool.
And that's about as deep as I dare go with it because I haven't dug into it much further than that.
All right. Well, let's see. What else do you want to talk about, Julie?
Well, we could talk about Ineta.
Yeah, let's talk about Ineta.
Maybe give me hell about this whole chick thing. I actually heard something funny the other day, so maybe we can start there again.
Okay.
And it relates to Ineta. I heard that I had been referred to as that there is a woman in Ineta who is, somehow, I wish I knew the phrasing, really evangelizes women programmers to a point that I think I was a little scary to the person who was talking about me. They didn't name me, but when I heard that, I said, "Oh, that's got to be. I'm sure they're talking about me."
Yeah, because there are so many people in Ineta who meet that description, It'd be hard to narrow it down. So.
There's so many women in Ineta to start with.
So
Ineta is actually going through a huge evolution, and I think actually Ineta's been going through an evolution since the day it started. It's just amazing. There's so many user groups in it, and I don't think anybody ever planned for Ineta, ever dreamed that Ineta would get so as big as it is now.
Yeah.
There's so many user groups. We're so involved in so many different things, and so one of the internally the evolution is that we're really trying to quickly revamp the infrastructure, of how we work and the website and all of those types of things to accommodate what's really happening.
And let me just use the acronym police here. Be the acronym police for Ineta. In case you still don't know what that stands for, it's the International .NET Association?
That's exactly it.
Yeah, and what they do is they support user groups all around the world.
.NET user groups?
Yep, .NET user groups. And they fly people like Julie and myself and Rory. And not you because you're...
No, they have...
not me either,
I can give you the elevator pitch on
all right,
Ineta.
sure, go ahead.
Bill, I should credit this to Bill Evian. This was his elevator pitch to his initial sponsors. Bill is a user group leader in St. Louis. And St. Louis is a big city. They've got access to a lot of resources. And I guess he had gotten together with some other user group leaders who run big user groups in big cities with access to a lot of great resources. And they said, gee, what do poor little user groups in places like, Burlington, Vermont do?
Mm-hmm.
How do they get people to come speak at their user group? Wouldn't it be great if, we could fly people like, or drive people like Carl Franklin or, Michelle LaRue Bustamante or Chris Sells at the time when Ineta started because he didn't work for Microsoft. Wouldn't it be really cool if little user groups had access to big-name speakers like that? And that's what Ineta got, where its roots come from. And then it just grew like crazy because it was such a great idea. It was a wonderful idea. And tapping into the network of people who were already really big community cheerleaders, who are the user group leaders, which is what I was and still am. So you've already got, a huge group of people who are really ready to help make this kind of stuff happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just took off, and then it flew into Latin America.
Right.
And they just took it and they did incredible things down there with it. The developer community down there, you wouldn't even believe what it's like and how big and how enthusiastic and how connected it is. And there's a bunch of other regions around the country. So we've actually kind of split up. It's still Ineta, but there's, Ineta North America,
right?
Ineta
Sort
Europe
of
in the different regions.
Delegating responsibility to regions.
Yeah. And then, the people in those regions understand the dynamics of their region a lot better, so it makes more sense.
Yeah. So that's been going. A lot of new groups have been coming into Ineta. Anything else happening in that space? I mean, there's a lot. The Speakers Bureau, is it growing? For example.
Well, the Speakers Bureau, I think they're going to grow it again or do some shifting in it. Growing it sometimes also means if there's speakers who
Pruning,
don't want to
yeah.
be in the Speaker Bureau anymore,
right?
For one reason or another. So I don't know if there's going to be the number is going to be bigger, or they're just going to kind of refresh it again at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And there's other things that Ineta does. The Speaker Bureau is like number one. There's all kinds of community stuff. There's a lot of the people who are liaisons around in the U.S. They work closely with the user group leaders in their area, and then they end up coming up with events like the Heartland User Conference. It's a bunch of user group leaders getting together and putting together an event. There's also Ineta Academic, which has gotten very, very involved in helping out with university groups, university students. They're being really instrumental now in helping run the Imagine Cup, which is this incredible competition that happens all over the world, and it peaks by having
Is that a
the
developer
top-
competition?
I think it's in Singapore or Japan or somewhere in Asia this year. And
Is
now
that
I
Julie?
think
Is that a developer competition? What is that?
it's for student developers, and actually it has they change it a little bit every year. I think there's 4 different competitions.
Oh wait,
So
is this
one
the
of-
thing
one
that
of them
Kathleen
is-
was talking about? Kathleen Dollard,
I
was she
bet
talking about?
Kathleen was, because Kathleen is very involved and very excited in student programs.
Yeah, I remember
So
this.
the Imagine Cup, I don't know if it's for high school or just college, but I know it's definitely college. And they have, each college will have a team, and then they have a regional competition against different teams. So they set out these goals. The competition sets out these goals, and the team will come up with their own idea for an application. Last year they had to do something that was a compact framework type of an application. So come up with a great idea and implement the great idea. And so they had competitions, all over the world, and then they would take the winners of those and have them regionally. So then there was a Canadian winner and winners in different regions, and then they had a competition down in Brazil.
Cool.
So
Cool.
yeah. So that's really cool. So Ineta Academic, Jeff Julian is really involved in that, and Jason Barris. But last I heard, there are like 40 people on their committee.
Wow.
They're doing a lot of stuff.
Wow. Hey, if you don't mind, if I could turn this back to the tablet PC thing,
that would be
and
cool.
specifically your Doodle application. Now, this is interesting because it's a web application that
Yeah.
you can doodle on with a tablet, right?
Yeah, to me that was like the last thing. I wanted to be able to, like before we had that ability, that was the last place, right? The last bastion of my computer where I couldn't use my pen.
Right.
Wait, explain in some detail what you mean by that.
Yeah.
By this being a tablet web app.
The tablet has internally in the tablet operating system, it has the you have the ability to do ink, and it also has the tip, which is it's the interface where you can actually write in there and it will automatically do the handwriting recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I'm always
The tablet input panel. Yeah.
right. So that's part of it, and then there's the whole inking ability. So if you actually opened up an internet application, a web application that had a form on it, you could actually still ink with the control. Say you had a data entry form, you could actually use the tip, and the tip would, take the ink, recognize it, and then insert that into the control on the screen. But you couldn't literally write into the control on the screen. You couldn't do that. Can you visualize what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So the tablet team made a change in the API where you can now use Windows Forms control to put on a web page, and then you make the Windows Forms control ink enabled, and then voila, you've got ink ability to literally draw right on the form in your web page. And the reason they didn't do it before was because there was some security problems with the way the controls worked, so they just modified how they were hooking in to the API, into the Win32 API. Because one of the things a lot of people don't understand or don't realize about the API for working with tablet PC is it's a COM API with a really, really nice .NET wrapper around it.
Yeah.
So it's like I've always make sure there's like 20 slides inserted into my presentation that says don't forget to dispose, all over the place, because you're doing interop there. So
wait a minute. Whoa. You mean wow. So the API isn't handling that stuff for you? Because it feels like a really good, solid .NET API. I actually didn't know that there was, wow.
They did an incredible job with it. I mean, it really is definitely working with the .NET application. That's why I make a point of reminding people over and over again, you've got to dispose, because it's all COM stuff. So anyway, with the Windows, so you can create these Windows Forms controls and, do almost the same way you would in a Windows application that you were enabling for Ink. You would just do the same thing, and you would create a Windows Form control, and then in the same way that you would implement any other Windows Forms control into an ASP.NET page, you do that here also with an object tag.
Mm-hmm.
And then because they fix the way the ink hooks into the control, and what I mean by that is if you have a control, if you have an object like a text box or a picture box or something like that that's on your Windows form, say you're doing a Windows application, and you want to make that ink enabled, you create one of the ink components, and then on the Windows side you would pass in the pointer, right, to the window, the Windows handle. And the Windows handle is the thing that was the problem. So they changed it so that you can just make a reference to the actual window, the form, or whatever, or the little control, maybe it's a text box or something that you want to ink enable. So without the Windows handle now, it's able to do it, and that's how they got around the security problems. Because otherwise people had to do things like fully trust a website, etc. Because it's really, when you're doing that, it's really downloading that control into your cache, into the GAC.
Julie, what's the URL for that Doodle app?
The Doodle app. Oh, so that is. So let me explain what the Doodle app is, and then I'll say what the URL is. So I just wanted to see how this worked. I wanted to say, wow, that's really cool, but if I can't figure out how to do it, then it's not good.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be able to actually do it. So I created an application for drawing doodles, and that's on my website. So it's thedatafarm.com /doodle.aspx. And there you can draw. So I made just a basic interface for drawing. You can pick a bunch of different colors. You can pick a bunch of different pen thicknesses and transparencies. I didn't put undo in there. I realized after watching a couple of people play with it, I need to modify it and put some undo in there. So it's not a full-blown drawing application because it's just proof of...
It's more of like a demo. It's like a tech demo. Like, look, I can do ink in a web page.
It's proof of concept. But I try to take it all the way because there's some things about the way you persist it, and you would spit it out to another page. And I wanted to be able to incorporate that drawing into a bigger page. So that was a little complicated to do, but I figured it out, which is what I did my presentation on, actually.
And this isn't going to work in Firefox, right? This is only going to work in IE?
As far as I know, this stuff only works in IE, but I have not tried it anywhere else.
Okay.
So I don't want to say that. I mean, it's basically the requirement is IE, but I've never seen anybody say I tried it in Firefox and it did not work.
And you don't have to have a tablet to actually go there, right?
No, you can. You have to have a tablet to actually. You can, if you have Windows XP Service Pack 2 on your computer, even on your desktop, then you've got the tablet PC operating system on there, and you should be able to draw even with your mouse onto that screen. I discovered that by accident the other day. I could draw with my mouse. So you don't have to have a tablet to look at the page. It's a lot easier to draw on the page with a pen, but I discovered I can draw on the page really badly with a mouse.
Yeah.
And then when you create your picture, you can save the picture, and then you can download it or do whatever you want with it because it becomes, I think it becomes a GIF or BMP or something like that. So
Very
then
cool.
You can actually right-click on it and save as, but you can also save it to my gallery.
Yeah.
And so you can go to the gallery and look and see some of the different doodles people like Carl have done. You can see a big difference between doodles I've done, which are like smiley faces. Carl's is this really extensive drawing. I couldn't even
wasn't
believe
that
he just
expensive.
whipped that out. But that's the difference between a pen, and Rory knows the difference. And the fact that you can just use a pen to write on your computer screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It just changes everything. If you're interested in something like drawing or making cartoons or something like that.
Well, Julie, we're almost out of time. Do you have any last-minute words of advice or calls to action or anything you want to say to anybody or in general before we go?
Oh, I had a call to action. I don't know, read my weblog. It's all there.
Call to
all
action.
the things that I think about.
Send me some
I
chocolates.
think also to start definitely. If you haven't started looking at Whidbey yet, definitely start playing with it. Get used to it and look a little deeper than what's on the surface and all the popular stuff people are talking about.
Yeah.
And if you have a chance to play with a tablet, definitely go play with a tablet.
Definitely.
And along those lines, if anybody wants to get a copy of Whidbey, of Visual Studio 2005 Beta 1 Refresh, come to an MSDN event at msdnevents.com, and you'll walk away with a DVD with that on it. Just plug in that for
How cool is that?
my guys, my team, my boys.
Yeah, and the
And
DVD
gals.
also has a bunch of Inetta videos on it, doesn't it?
It's just got a bunch of stuff.
And some
it's
.NET
just
Rocks
like
episodes
tons of
and
stuff.
everything else.
Yep.
All right. Well, listen, Julie from myself and Rory out there in Portland, Oregon, and Julie Lerman in Vermont, Burlington, Vermont, Jeff Maciolik in the sound room. This is Carl Franklin in New London, Connecticut, saying goodnight and, well,
Good night.
good night.
Good night.